Hey everybody, welcome back to Joy at Work. It's June 5, 2020, and I'm glad to be with you again. Feel free to subscribe and give thoughts or share uh, what you'd like for me to talk about. Well, this is an interesting time. When I started this from home, we were just dealing with the pandemic, but in the last, you know, 2 weeks, really, things have really changed in our society. And last week, when I kicked off, even though I wanted to talk about confronting the brutal facts, I spent a few minutes talking about just the social unrest and the racial injustice, and my heart went out towards the families that have been recently impacted, the families that have been impacted over decades. It's a long list, and I have to say I was a little nervous is not the right word, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't, I guess maybe didn't even say the wrong thing in the context of what Joy at Work is for. But in that time, a lot's changed, and last night I believe was day 10 of protests, and they continue, and so I just we have to talk about it now. I guess we have to talk about that in this time, in different workplaces, different conversations have been had. I know in my workplace we've talked about it quite a bit. And if you pay attention to social media and other things, you see that folks are finally talking about this. It's almost like we had the perfect storm for this to become a big issue. It's not like we haven't had this in the past. It's not like we haven't had situations like this in the past. It's just maybe this situation fully ripened, as a lot of change, agents would say, and we're kind of at the point where change maybe can happen. I got to be honest, I have so many thoughts. You all know this is unscripted, so I'm not even sure where this will go, but it's important, I think, to talk about a few things. The first thing I just want to state is there was a reason why I named this channel Joy at Work, and this period is a great example why. I am not happy. I'm not happy at all. Haven't been happy for uh, at least over a week or two now, or maybe actually closer to a month. Maybe when the video of Mr. Aubrey's death surfaced was kind of where I began to feel a change in my happiness level. But I can still say that I have joy, because I believe personally that joy endures. You may not be happy, you might not be, you may feel sad, but you can still have joy even in the pit, and it's joy because you believe something's going to happen. It's joy in the contribution you're making. So while I'm not happy about what's going on, I've still had, moments of joy as I've seen people step up, corporations step up, and actually try to make a statement up against what's going on right now. So that continues to bring me joy, and it continues to give me hope that maybe we can see some change. This has been tough for people to talk about, and I think it's important to talk about it. I've shared with people, right? I'm the child of immigrants, right? So I'm a black man in this country, and I'm still in a separate category. So while I've experienced many things black people in general experience, whether it's anxiety with being pulled over, or being in certain places and towns at certain times of the day, and I had a situation where I was somewhere many years ago, and I walked into the store, and not soon after, a cop car showed up right outside. Um, and I later got to learn that someone had made a call because I was there at an odd time, if you will. So, but even that, my experiences are still very different from my brothers and sisters who have a different background, and who have a different a different history, if you will. And so I even in that situation have a lot of empathy for them, because their experience still is different from mine. And I think that that's something that is very important even at this time, as people kind of navigate through this. One of the things I see folks doing is trying to kind of compare their situation with other people's situation. I actually don't think that this is the time. I think this is the time to support the group that needs the help the most, and deal with it in that way. I think, just to be point blank, if this is not your experience right now, if what we're going through is not your experience, provide support. Just provide support. There's no doubt in my mind, it's clear that there's a ton of excuse me, on many dimensions, right? Um, but it's important when we're talking about a specific issue to hone in on that issue and to give it its support. I'll just give you one more example of why I think this is important. As a black man in tech, right, it is very easy for me to talk about all I have experienced in tech, especially if when talking about what others experience in tech. But that's often not the right time to talk about it, especially if, for example, we were talking about experience of females in tech, right? That's when we all know that a lot of women get silenced, they get mistreated in the workplace. That's not the right time for me to raise my hand as a black man and say I am always the minority. When I go to conferences, I see very, very few people that look like me. When I'm in staff meetings, I see very, very few people that look like me. Those things are all true, but that's not the time. Like, time matters a lot in these situations. So be sensitive to what's going on and make sure your voice is reflecting the issue of the moment, not your issue, but the issue of the moment. I think that that's very important. A lot of folks have also reached out to me and said, "Hey, how do I provide help? How do I support?" I shared this on LinkedIn. I think this is the time to ask questions. It's the time to be curious, and then it's the time to shut up and listen. I don't think anybody is asking people who are not part of this immediate experience to have all the answers, or to have words of wisdom. In fact, a number of people who have reached out to me have been very transparent about they don't know what to say. That's okay. I don't think anybody really needs for you to know what to say other than to say, this is not right. We should not treat people different because of their skin color. You know what you can do at this time? Instead of maybe focusing on what you've experienced, spend a lot of time learning the other people's experience so you can lend your voice to their cause at this time as opposed to your cause. That is extremely important. So there are a ton of resources that are out there. A friend of mine, a coworker of mine, I won't mention his name right now, we're having a conversation last night, and he was talking to me about the fact that after Mr. Gray passed away, he went out and began to read some books. He's Caucasian, and he went to read some books to try and get a better understanding of what's going on, right? And how he could help. And that's what you need to do. I think if you really want to make a positive contribution, educate yourself on the cause. I think that's important to make sure you do that. Um, Another thing is just be open and have a conversation. Yesterday, I had another conversation with a coworker for about 45 minutes, and I really appreciated that he called me. We have different backgrounds, different skin color, but we've been professional friends for a long time, and he called me and we had some great conversation where we traded stories about how we're talking to our kids in this time, and he made it very clear, right, that or our conversation made it very clear that even the conversations we're having with our kids are nuanced. While some people are having conversations with their kids that go like, what matters most is, not skin color, but the content of one's character. Some parents are still having conversations with their kids about what to dress, how to dress, and what to do when they get pulled over and things like that. And recognizing that nuance and recognizing that there's a lot that's going on is important. I truly believe that silence is complicity, but I also think it matters what we say at this time. I think if putting yourself in the shoes of the folks who are going through this difficult experience. And like I said earlier, right, my experience is not exactly the same as a number of other people's experience, even in this country, because our backgrounds are different. But it's something I can relate to because I've felt a little bit of it. But we need to lend our voice to that. And the last thing I'm going to say is along is really that, you know, reach out to somebody who doesn't look like you, somebody who's different, different religion, different thoughts, different whatever, right? We're all human, and it's unfortunate that, you know, our differences um, often create a wedge and a divide when our differences could also be could potentially be a thing of beauty if harnessed correctly. So, you know, apologies that this was probably a little bit all over the place. I've been thinking a lot about what I wanted to say on this topic. If I were just to recap, you know, if you want to support the cause, if you want to support racial justice, social justice at this time for Black folks, make your point really for Black folks. Lend your voice to them. Support at this time. There will be time to talk, bring up other issues. There's always time when we can do that, but this is a time, I believe, for addressing a major problem in our society. Reach out to those who don't look like you, support them in any which way you can, and don't forget, we can still have joy even in this difficult time. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.